It's another week of the Pack the Rock podcast. Today it's me, Dylan Traeger, joined by Liv Clements. And we had a special guest on today. How about Michigan season ticket holder and IU student Ryan Canfield joining us for today. What's up, Ryan?
What's going on, everybody? Thank you guys for bringing me on here. It's a great honor to be on Pack the Rock. Before we get started, there was indeed a game played this weekend. And if you listen to my show, the HN College Football Show, I'm not going to plug because we don't need to do that. But people think that I don't like Indiana football. I love this team. But when they play Michigan, I got to stick with my roots. And there was indeed a game played this weekend. And I was there. And Dylan, we were talking about before Dylan hit record, we were saying, oh, you have two teams. Like, no. In basketball, maybe. Football, no. And I was sitting in that stadium in my lovely seats. When Indiana scored that first touchdown, I was in shambles. I was really in shambles. And I was surprised, like, this Rod Carey stuff's going to work. And then, the boa constrictor gets some. So, yeah, it was a great time, though. It was a great game. The atmosphere was great because I was told from weather apps and my dad being an absolute downer saying, this game is going to be awful. This game's going to be awful. It's going to be wet. It's going to be cold. Get ready to have a horrible time. And I'm like, screw you, man. We went and had a great time, though. And the weather stayed off for a good chunk of the first half. So it was a great time.
It was a great game at the start. I turned it on. I was going to watch the whole thing. I did not go there. I wasn't going to go. Watching it from the home. And the first quarter goes by. They get that trick play to Jalen Lucas for the 44-yard touchdown. And I'm like, okay, the defense for IU has 3 sacks in the first quarter. And I'm hyping myself up. I'm with my friends. We're having a good time. I'm like, maybe IU will pull off the upset. And maybe, just maybe, if we don't pull off the upset, we don't get demolished. And that's where I went wrong. That is where I went wrong. You never get your hopes up.
And I was like, oh, hello, Rod Carey. I like to see this little trickeration kind of stuff. But, it's a long road ahead. And if he keeps this job through next year, I feel like next year will be the time where we really set into this offense and have another year of Taven or Brendan, or if Dexter does not leave us, we'll get to really toy with this offense, and they'll have I have a lot of faith in Rod Carey, because when he comes out guns a-blazing against Michigan in the Big House, you kind of got to admire the guy there,
I think it was, for IU to score, it took a trick play, which is kind of like, I wasn't really impressed by it. You took last year's quarterback that's now wide receiver to get a touchdown, which I think from the jump that automatically showed that they didn't have much faith in the other quarterbacks that we had. But like we said, stats don't lie. You see IU go 92 rushing yards, Michigan had 163, and that's already just like, oh. And then, total yards, you have 232 total yards, but then Michigan has 407. So, it's like stats like that. When IU has 5 penalties resulting in almost 50 yards, it's going to be really hard to win any game. 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions. I think they just shot themselves in the foot off the gate with Michigan.
I could throw out 99 negatives from the game.
Right.
I'm going to pull out 1 positive, and I'm going to say that trick play, to see that against a top team in the nation like that and work like that, it gives me a little bit of hope for IU that maybe the new offensive coordinator could work out. IU's experimenting new things, and that they do have Donovan McCulley still in the playbook for some sort of plays like that. It was really interesting to see, and watching that live. I'm sure you saw that from the Big House with a different experience.
I saw that from Section 17, and I was just shivering, man. I was just sitting there, and I was like, really? This is going to be one of those games? And my girlfriend was there with me, so she's from Indy, and we got her to wear Michigan stuff, and then she just takes her phone out and goes, Ryan's mad because Indiana is beating Michigan. And I'm like, get out of my face. Stop that. But here's something that I do have to say about this team. This team is not going to give up. They will not give up. And we saw it a lot last year when they played Michigan State. And that was a great game, because I hate Michigan State more than Ohio State, fun fact. But here is where the point comes. This team will fight for Tom Allen, no matter how many times the fans want to say, Tom Allen's a bad coach, Tom Allen is incompetent. These players are still going to fight for him. He is a player's coach, and they are going to keep on fighting, and they're going to win games that they really shouldn't. And that kind of gives me hope for Rutgers, because I know they were probably better. They were a better unit than Michigan State last year. But when you go on the road and you win in like a trophy game, and that just gives me hope for this Purdue game too. And I know Purdue's not that good, so it's not a lost season because the 2 trophy games are still up for grabs. And it can be time to toy with this defense, and we could probably see Dexter Williams coming back depending on what they want to do here. And I know we're going to get into quarterback stuff in a second, but I just really don't want to take this team all the way down to the ground just yet because there is still some bright spots.
I agree. I don't think this has been like a terrible season for IU at all. I really don't think anyone was really no one was expecting them to be like 6-0.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like they still have showed a lot of improvement. I mean, there is something in Tom Allen that's bringing transfers here, right? I mean, there's something in coaching that's bringing them here. And I think that you have to pride themselves on that. I mean, you fire offensive coordinator, which is hard to do midseason. I think for any team, that's going to be a loss. But I think they try to take it as a win, and I think they did show that. I think offensively they didn't look that bad. I just still am not on the wagon of like the whole QB change. I think that's still throwing me off. But because I feel like, I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like Taven didn't look bad like in the beginning. Like I wasn't really mad about it. I mean, yeah, he definitely showed that he's newer to that QB1 position in a big house. But, Sorsby came in, and I felt like he didn't do, much more.
Well, the way I'm looking at it, you go into a game versus Michigan, and for IU, Michigan has a top defense. You're probably more than likely not going to pull that game away. But why not let your quarterback settle in and get you the reps in through a game like that instead of pulling him out early?
Totally.
Taven Jackson, he's only a freshman. He needs that experience and those reps, and pulling him out wasn't the right decision. And to me personally, it's kind of concerning that Coach Allen had all of summer and all of fall camp and even the first few games of the season to play around and pick his quarterback. And now we're in week 7 of college football, and Coach Allen still doesn't have his pick. Well, and that doesn't concern me for Coach Allen. It more so concerns me that you're going to hurt the morale of Taven and Sorsby.
Yes.
And now they don't feel only comfortable in their skills. They also don't have faith and trust in the coaches. And I would hate to see, as you said a few weeks ago, one of these guys transfer and then be the next Michael Penix and win the Heisman and be one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
And I don't think we'll get a Michael Penix outburst of Brendan Sorsby, whether he goes somewhere or not. But here's what I'll have to say. During that first couple drives, putting Michigan on their heels and fans like myself on their heels, I know people don't want to hear this, but it's stepping stones. This team is not going to hang with Michigan for X amount of time. It's only a matter of time before Ohio State comes away from you. If they started Maryland differently, there's just more talent on these teams. And I just feel like they did what they wanted to do. They scored first. I was watching some film on this game, and just Indiana, with the little dump-offs, it's you get the ball, you snap the ball. Taven has less than 3 seconds to get it out. They get it out for a first down, move the chains, keep repeating that. Sure, he throws the interception in the first drive of the game, but that's what they want to do. They want to get down the field against defenses that have NFL talent. And I just feel like it's too late in the season to talk about moral victories, but that's a big moral victory.
Yeah, but I also think the thing is, too, with this, whole talk about, QBs and stuff, I think the main thing I took away from Michigan is there was a clear team flow. Everyone was on the same page on that field. Offensively, wide receivers, running backs, the O-line, everybody was on the same page. You could see that J.J. McCarthy felt really comfortable. Going 14 for 17, 222 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's a comfortable game for you. I think everyone knew he was going to shine, but I think that's what the difference is with IU is you take Taven out, and then now it's not just about the quarterbacks trying to figure it out again. Now you have wide receivers okay, every quarterback's different. So now they're changing up how they want to go, how they want to do plays. Certain plays are going to be for just certain quarterbacks. I just think that you interrupt a flow. I feel like they didn't give Taven a true taste of what it's like to try to get in a flow against a big team. And Rod Carey said, Taven's my QB1. I feel great about it. We're coming out of the week. I still feel good about him. I don't know what happened in the amount of 3 days. But I think that's going to hurt anyone's morale. And especially going into homecoming, I said it last podcast that Dexter Williams could have a homecoming. That'd be super cool.
Oh, that'd be great.
That'd be super cool. But I mean, I feel like Taven still hasn't got a shot, and I feel like they would be really disappointed if he decided to take his talent somewhere else.
And I feel like if they would have fired Walt Bell earlier, and this Michigan game where they reset everything, it's too late. If this was the Akron game, the season would just be so much more like clearer, and the vision of trying to get, Taven this amount of reps, or I'm sorry, finish the season as Sorsby with Sorsby at quarterback or Taven at quarterback, and if this all happened earlier, they could have, they could have a lot of bright spots going into these games, not against the big three of the Big Ten East.
They're doing like week 1, week 2, changes.
It's just too late for that.
Late, yeah.
And when I was watching the game too, Taven was in. I looked down for 1 second. I looked back up, and Sorsby's in. And my honest thoughts, my honest reaction was, what the F just happened? Why the F is that happening? Because it's coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it was the second quarter, halfway through. I'd imagine that's not an ideal spot to pull out Taven. And if you're going to pull him out, let him at least play through half the third.
I agree.
I mean, pulling him out after a quarter and a half of play just doesn't make any sense to me. It really is going to hurt him, and I would hate to see him leave.
Yeah, I would hate that. But I also think, it wasn't even just about the QB positions. I mean, there were some good moments. There were some good moments on the team just in general. I mean, it wasn't really the Jalen Lucas show either, right? I think, you see some other people start to step up. Donovan McCulley, everyone really loves to see him out there getting some plays. Going into Rutgers, though, I truly, truly think that Rutgers defense is really good. And so I feel like if they are going in trying to play this QB, you guys don't know who's going to be QB, haha, it's just going to backfire.
And I'll say this, after I left, we got back to our tailgate setup, and the guy who set up the TV at this tailgate, his name escapes me, but he's a legend for setting up this TV. And we got to watch the if you will, garbage time of this game. And it's just embarrassing for Gus and Joel to be all like, "Oh, Indiana." Tom Allen's all about positivity, but positivity can only take you so much when there's no talent on this team, which I totally disagree. And then I feel like in some aspects this year is not a complete failure, but in some ways the talent on this team is just going to go to waste. Andre Carter's in his 6th year. I don't believe he can stay, so he'll be a draft pick. Aaron Casey's been phenomenal. He'll be gone. And then they go on to say, "Oh, Jalen Lucas will be not at Indiana next year." I'm like, that's just embarrassing, and it's not fair. It's not fair to the players, and it's just, I think it's ridiculous, and it's sad, and I just think it's not fun.
Mm-hmm. It really isn't fair to the players. And you look at the team last year, there wasn't one game where I thought there was a bright spot in that offense,
right?
And there was no one to look forward to watching play. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this year with Indiana, you've got Jalen Lucas, who hasn't been as hot as he was at the beginning, but he's a guy who's going to go out there any given day and take 13 to 20 carries for, 90, 100 yards. And he's an exciting player to watch. And I feel like if Indiana loses that type of player, it's not a fun offense.
I think that Indiana went in thinking this was going to be maybe a rebuilding year. I think they saw a lot of transfers. I mean, basically the whole team is transfers. And so I feel like you see yourself getting a lot of transfers, and so you think it's going to be a rebuilding year, and then now it's looking like next year we could see a whole new offense, a whole new quarterback, a whole new head coach.
A whole new team, yeah.
Yeah,
there you go.
So I think that that's going to be a huge deal. But that's why I said last podcast, they have to just take every game, one game at a time, and focus on this year. Stop making decisions based off who we think is going to be here next year and who's going to get hurt or who's okay right now. Take every game as it is. If Taven wants to start right now, but you don't know if he'll be back next year, if he's going to be the best chance to win, then keep him. And then we figure it out, and you go on to the next year. But I don't even think the whole aspect of quarterbacks this, quarterbacks that, wide receiver that. I mean, Tom Allen might not even be here next year. So I think that everyone needs to put in consideration that they see you go game by game. And this Rutgers game is going to be huge. One, because it's homecoming and it's going to be live. But their offense and their defense is not something that you can sleep on.
And, I'm going to look at the brighter picture and stay away from some of the negativities. I'm going to go out and say IU turns it around and they win this game against Rutgers.
Yes.
Homecoming matchup. I know the whole team will be running suicides all week after the Michigan game. They'll be doing push-ups. But looking at the bigger picture, you're playing Rutgers. I feel like you look at the quarterback, Gavin Wimsatt. He hasn't been a heavy passing quarterback. He hasn't surpassed 200 passing yards in one game. And if IU's defense can capitalize, I think they can really take over. Wimsatt's been getting sacked a lot in all the games. He got sacked 3 times in that barely win against Michigan State.
Yeah.
And I just think, you look at IU against Michigan. They had 3 sacks in the first quarter. If they can play a similar trend to that, which I think is possible, I think IU can take control of the game. And it's really just for Rutgers. It's Kyle Monangai taking home everything.
I know. He's been having a year.
He has been.
I think Kyle Monangai will finish the year as the second All Big Ten back. He's having a first team All Big Ten back. He's been great, and I don't want to discredit Nick Singleton or Travion Henderson, but they're always injury prone, and Kyle Monangai he's the workhorse of this offense, and I think this is not Rutgers of old, but they are still Rutgers, and they do play hard for Greg Schiano. And they do have some weapons on offense. Johnny Langan is kind of that wild card. He can play tight end. He can come in at quarterback. He can come in at receiver. He's very versatile at 6'3", 245. And I think Isaiah Washington is a very experienced receiver. And if Wimsatt can get them the ball, and I feel like the defensive miscues for Indiana will be big for Rutgers to capitalize on it, because you saw from the Michigan game, this is the only film I have on Rutgers, really. The big miscue for Michigan was the one breakout play, and I feel like if Indiana doesn't capitalize on defense, it can end poorly, and just mistakes will fuel this Rutgers offense. But I do like Gavin Wimsatt a lot. He does have a disaster factory at times, but I do like him quite a bit. He's proved a lot of doubters wrong. He was not in my top 7 quarterbacks list coming into the season. So he's been rather good.
I mean, I think last year when you saw Gavin play, I think there wasn't this dominance about him. I think Rutgers was kind of just there in the Big Ten, kind of floating in the middle.
Being Rutgers.
But I think that this year, I think everyone could kind of see there's a flow going, right? He's stepping up a little bit, trying to show some leadership. I think that the one really positive thing I think about him is that when it comes to crunch time, I think they've delivered. I think in the 2 losses they have had, which was Michigan and Wisconsin, there were some pretty heavy losses that I don't think they knew they were going to come back from. But I do think that when it's coming down to they need to deliver, they do. But that's what makes me nervous about IU, is I think if you give Rutgers an inch of hope towards the beginning, I think they really will run with it and kind of have a field day. But I think what's big too is about Wimsatt, though, 4 interceptions so far is a big deal. And I think that he's thrown one in both games that they've lost. IU's defense is still strong. They've have been kind of struggling showing that, but they're strong. So I think that if they capitalize on that would be great. I just think that they have to stop that offensive duo between Gavin and Kyle.
Right. But then you look at Rutgers also, and it's Kyle Monangai. He's averaging 17 carries a game,
right,
90 yards a game, a touchdown a game, and he'll play perfectly for Rutgers every week if no defense will stop him.
Yep.
So the way I'm looking at it, Indiana definitely has to stop from getting in the end zone. Mm-hmm. He's going to get his carries. He's going to get his yards. If they can find a way to stop him, I don't see any reason why IU can't take over.
But I think the big thing is that IU struggles when QBs are strong running, right? When I think we saw that in Akron, which I talked about that a couple of podcasts ago, but I think, like you said, though, Gavin is going to look to run, right? He's going to look to run, and he's a bigger quarterback, I feel like, right? He's bigger. He's pretty big.
He's tall.
Yeah, so I feel like that's going to be big. He's not just going to go down easy, right? I think, yes, he's gotten sacked, but they've been, I think, out of his control. But I do feel like if IU's defense starts to struggle on that and they figure out a flow of just how to get Gavin into the end zone, it could be a struggle. But I actually really do see IU taking a win. I think they're going to feel so good being back home. And I think that energy, noon kickoff right there at home will be really big for them. But I think this could also be Rutgers' big game too, because this could be the game that gets them bowl eligible, which is huge.
Right.
And the thing about Rutgers being close to bowl eligible, they have many opportunities to get there.
Yeah.
And I think they have Maryland at home, so that could be a big game for them. But they're going to come out ready to play. And last time Rutgers made a bowl, they were not bowl eligible. They were 5-7, and they filled in for Texas A&M. They played Texas A&M in a game where Texas A&M's opponent had COVID, so they slotted in there. So this team will be ready to play, and it's really tricky because Rutgers is going to have that fierce defensive mindset, and I just feel like, what does Indiana have to lose anymore? Just whoever this quarterback is, just put the chips in the middle of the table, throw the ball down the field. Cam Camper I think Cam Camper is an NFL receiver. He is really,
hot take.
really, really good. And we saw some impressive plays from Omar Cooper. That one catch where he landed on his head. I think that there is talent on this team, and it's just the season is. Let's be real. This team is not gonna. They're not going to accomplish their goals of a good Big Ten team. They're not going to the playoff. They're not going to Indy, and it's just time to toy with it. And this is time for Rod Carey to really. This is his audition. This is his audition for next year, and I don't believe they're going to move on from him because I will think he'll be back next year, but this is his audition to get all the fans into it. Get your playmakers involved.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
That's really all I got.
I mean, I think right now it's just like just do football. I think at this, let's just go back to the ground basics and just play football and stick to what you know. I mean, they keep trying to do these changes, but I really feel like IU is performing their best when there is no stress of a quarterback position. There is no stress of who's starting. And they kind of just go out there and play. I loved watching the ISU game. Yes, ISU was not, they weren't favorable in that win. But I think they went out there and they played. Defense was strong. Offense was great. Taven had a game. Scoresby had a game. Awesome.
Yeah.
Just do that every game. I mean, like you said, they're not going to be bowl eligible. I mean, you're not winning. I don't see IU winning 4 more games. If they did, that would be wow. But I don't see them being bowl eligible. I don't see them, coming back to the top of the Big Ten. But every game still matters, and I feel like that's what's important. Just because you're not about to be bowl eligible doesn't mean that you just slack and just guess. And we just decided to put Dexter Williams in just for fun. I think do if he's 100%. But I do think that could be an awesome curveball to throw at Rutgers going to this game because I think Rutgers feels really comfortable.
And I'm gonna also stay on the positive side of what I've been doing all day. But you look at the first quarter of the Michigan game, I got a really good feeling that this week IU defense can put a good stop to Wimsatt. They're gonna try and continue his trend of getting sacked. IU's gonna put stops on Monungai, and IU's gonna come explosive on the offense. You saw that from IU in the first quarter of the Michigan game. Why can't they do it for 4 quarters against Rutgers?
Totally.
IU's going to take it this weekend. I'm confident.
I think that this IU defense, there's so much bad on offense. This IU defense does not get a lot of credit. Granted, they gave up 52 points to Michigan, but they're Michigan. So,
right.
I think Aaron Casey is all Big Ten caliber. I've been really impressed by Jacob Mangum-Farrar. I like Philip Dunham. Noah Pierre's experienced. Andre Carter, he's the 4th guy I mentioned. He's been great, and I just feel like this will be a big time. IU's in a good position to win this game.
They are. I think everything's in their benefit.
So you've got IU winning.
I do.
Do you have IU winning?
No, I don't.
Come on.
Gosh, we were so close.
I don't think our crew has ever been 100%. There's never been a time where we've all been 100% together.
I really do like this Rutgers team, and I think they get to bowl eligible. I got to go with Rutgers.
I think if it plays out how I think it's going to play out, I think that Gavin Wimsatt will have a really good game, but I think IU will win because the defense will stop them. I think that IU's offense is such a hit or miss, but I do think that they're going to struggle with Gavin, but I do think offensively they'll start to get in a flow if they pick one quarterback.
Would I be surprised if IU wins this game? Absolutely not. They're still Rutgers.
Okay.
But I feel like Rutgers is the more cohesive unit into the season, 8 weeks into the season. So I have one question for you guys. If I believe we're nearing the end of the podcast, so did Dexter Williams' injury set back this program?
Go ahead.
I would say no, in the sense that Dexter Williams was not going to be the starting quarterback last year, and his future was uncertain. Mm-hmm. You know, you look at last year, there were 2 quarterbacks before him. Dexter paved his way in from the failure of them, and he still underperformed.
Okay.
And he did have a gruesome injury, and I'm happy that he recovered, and he's recovered well. But when you're coming off an injury like that, you can't expect the quarterback one position just to be open for you either.
Yep.
Sure.
IU went out, and they did what they do, and they recruited well. And I tip my hat to IU that they didn't know what would go on with Dexter Williams, and they found replacements that will be good long-term replacements if they can keep Taven, and Dawson Sorsby too, staying in.
Mm-hmm. I think that it wasn't going to affect whether he honestly got hurt or not. I think, like you said, we're glad he's coming back, and we see him dressing and getting back in there, which I think it was super cool if he played this year. But I think no matter what, they were going to get someone else, recruit somebody else. So I think even if, let's say Sorbsby wasn't in the picture, they still would be doing the same thing with Taven and Dexter, which is unfortunate, but I do think that it wasn't going to do much. But, I mean, I still hope he gets some playtime, though, because I think he is another player that IU gets excited to see coming back. So I think that would be awesome to have a little morale of having a Hoosier back out there.
And I agree with you. It is unfortunate what happened, but I always root for the underdog. Yep. That's something I go by. And to be honest, I don't think he's going to really pave a way in.
I don't think he's going to come back and change the program.
No, it's not going to.
That's not going to happen.
But no quarterback really has. So why not give him the shot? I feel like, because you don't know who's going to be here next year.
Well, and it's unfortunate too. But I honestly would see his best scenario is transferring
100%,
not to a great D1 school, but finding a school where he can be a bona fide number 1 starter and showing what he can do, proving himself, and writing his story. I'd like to see that for him instead of sitting behind a bunch of quarterbacks.
And we're talking about Dexter, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we were talking about transfers. Where else would Taven go? He
I don't see Taven leaving.
Yeah, I don't think Taven would leave.
I mean, you already left Tennessee, which is a great college program.
I feel like there's nowhere left to go, and even if, let's say he wants to grad transfer somewhere, he's only an academic sophomore. So if he wants to grad transfer somewhere, he couldn't do that. He would already have 3 transfers. So I feel like the jury is not out on Taven Jackson. This is year 1 of a possible 3. I mean, I really don't like the disparaging comments on Taven Jackson because he's still a young kid. I mean, this is not going to happen just yet. And I just feel like he's got so much potential, and it's not time to throw the jury out that he was a bust. He was projected to be the savior, and he was projected to be, a cohesive Michael Penix talent as quarterback. That is not what he is at all. And so I just have a hard time believing that he's going to transfer somewhere. Dexter, I think, could very well transfer.
I think it'll just come down to also where Tom Allen stands. I think that will be such a big thing. I think, some players might not want to be here if Tom Allen's not here anymore. Or some might decide that their best bet is to have a different coach, but they like IU. So I think that will just come down to it. But like I always say, I think they need to stay focused on right now. Next game, Rutgers, homecoming, noon kickoff. It will be fun. Everyone's healthy. We'll see what happens. That just needs to be their main focus. I say it's going to be Taven against Gavin.
And I think with the whole homecoming aspect of it, show everyone that's here, that's going to be at the game, that you still care about this team, and just throw the ball around. Don't do the whole Walt Bell recipe. I know he's not here anymore, but just throw the ball. Have some fun.
Yep.
Have some fun. Just experiment. Because you got Rod Carey here now. This is his audition, as I said earlier. So just let loose. Go have fun.
I want everyone's game score prediction. We'll start. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So I definitely have IU winning.
Yeah.
The Rock will be packed. Rock will be packed.
See what you did there.
That was a good one.
Nice.
I've got Indiana taking this one I'm going to really dig on this one. Let's go 21-10. Hoosiers pull it off. It's going to be a great weekend for the Hoosiers.
Awesome. Love that. Go ahead, Rutgers fan.
I just want to go with the more cohesive unit, and I'll take Scarlet Knights. I hate doing score predictions because they're always so off, but I like.
Just give it a good guess.
I like a lot of defense here. Let's go 24-13 Rutgers.
Okay.
Okay, mine was similar. I was gonna do 21-10, and IU wins. I don't see this being like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be like 4 overtimes or anything crazy. But I think 21-10. I think it'll be a fun game. It'll be close. I don't think anyone's really gonna pop off till the second half.
But there it is. Will IU pull off the upset this weekend at Memorial Stadium? It's IU versus Rutgers, noon on Saturday. Check back in with us next week on the Pack the Rock podcast.